Welcome to episode 245 of the All the Books Show, normally recorded at the David A. Howe Public Library, now recorded from the comfort and spotty internet connection of our own homes. Eric is not with us today, but don't worry, it is just a scheduling snafu. He will be back next week when we talk to actor John Davies, so it's an exciting episode coming up. But today we have a special guest host filling in, our old friend Amanda Smith. Amanda, happy Star Wars Day.
Happy Star Wars Day. It is the 4th.
That's right. May the 4th be with you. I don't know. How long has this been going on? Do you remember when this first started being a thing people say? Because I feel like it was relatively recent.
I have no idea, but I did hear a very interesting response to May the 4th be with you. As
Really?
opposed to, yeah. So, I mean, the phrase goes, May the 4th be with you.
Yeah.
And in this case, the response is, but beware the revenge of the 5th.
That's pretty good. We've been watching a lot of Star Trek while at home, and my son was like, "Why isn't there a Star Trek day?" And I was like, "Well, what if we just said make it so?" And that sort of works.
Oh,
right?
There you go.
This is your third time on the show, Amanda. We talked Star Wars in the first. We figured this out last time in the first 10 or 20 episodes of the podcast years ago, and were we talking expanded universe? Was that what the focus that time?
So I think it was, we were doing The Force Awakens, that was prepping to come out.
Right.
And we had talked a bit about how they were making changes to the series.
That's right.
And we had added in a lot of the expanded universe, yeah.
Yeah. And then recently you joined us for one of the Off the Books episodes where we've been doing little in-between episode interviews. But here you are back on a proper episode. And today we're going to be talking about the Alan Dean Foster Star Wars novel, The Approaching Storm. And this is one that you'd read before, right, Amanda?
Yes.
And so you revisited it.
I've read it a couple times.
Okay. All right. Interesting. All right. Don't give anything away now because we're not there yet. We can't talk about it yet.
Okay.
Why don't we start by just let's open up the old book, see where the bookmarks are, see what we've been reading, what we've been watching. What about you? Last time we talked, you were deep into an anime hole. You still in the anime zone?
I am still there. I'm into the last season of the series Ruby.
Yeah. That
I was watching before.
Yes, I recall.
It's it's an interesting series. It's got 7 seasons.
Wow. Okay.
Which they've compiled together on YouTube. Anyone's interested in watching them there.
Okay.
And it follows 4 main characters, and just so their ultimate goal is to become huntresses and try and help save the world, essentially.
Oh, okay.
And defeat the Grimm. And it just follows all of their exploits and their kind of unification as a team, and a lot of the different challenges, both individually and as a group, that they have to face as they're going along. So it's got a really interesting character arc for each different character, and helps to develop all of those and just follow varying themes on that and just where they fall.
Now this is a relatively recent show, right? I mean, the last 10 years or so.
I think it came out or started coming out in 2013. So
okay.
Yeah, it's
all right.
It's
hey, I got it. Woo!
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, so thumbs up. I mean, if you're in season 7, you must be enjoying it.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Okay.
I do enjoy. I mean, typically anime is not my thing, but
okay.
I took a chance and it's good.
So, what about this one piqued your interest? Why did you decide to watch it?
So, a friend of mine has a boatload of board games and had pulled one that was based on this series out and was talking about the storyline and the characters and everything. And with the onset of the pandemic, I was like, well, I have lots of time.
Right,
so
yeah.
I might as well, I figured I might as well at least give it a try. And if I didn't like it, no harm, no foul. But it turned out that it was really interesting. So I've been following through the whole series.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, it's always fun to find a new show. You mentioned games.
Yeah.
Remind me of a situation we had last night here at my house. We did it was called an online escape room that we did with my wife and I, and then her sister and her sister's husband. And it was a thing where it was there was a murder on an airplane and we had to figure it out. And we were trucking along pretty well. There were 9 sets of clues, and it was images and police reports and, eyewitness statements and that sort of thing. And you had to sort of parse from that a clue to open up the next batch of clues. And so we were a couple of hours in, and we got to clue 7, and we figured it out, and the website that was hosting this crashed. And so, I mean,
Oh,
I know. So at first we
oh,
thought it was just the shoddy internet that's at my house, as you can attest to. But
yeah, yeah.
we checked and it was like, no, in fact, those servers actually were down. So hours in, 7 out of 9 clues, and we had to just stop. So
That's so
I
frustrating.
still don't know who killed Avery Stone. So that's eating away
So
at
it
me.
doesn't keep your progress at all. You can't just like pause and then go back to it at some
I
point.
don't know. That's what we weren't sure about. I mean, we had a unique password, so it seems likely that we'd be able to go back to it, but it's also like timed. So I don't know. I
Okay.
don't know. So that's the next mystery we have to figure out is how to continue this murder mystery. So we're going
Well,
to be working
so
on
here's the
that.
next question: would
Okay.
they keep it all the same if you went back and restarted? Because if they did, you could
Uh,
wipe out your time from initially and just be like, "All right, we're at
Probably.
clue 7 in like 5 minutes."
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's possible. It was interesting though. I got to say, my one pet peeve about this and anything like that, the clues that you were figuring out were more like puzzles and less to do with the actual story. So it was almost like you
Yeah.
just sort of look for the thing that's the puzzle and then figure that out, and then the rest of it doesn't matter. So I thought that was kind of a weakness of it, but it
Yeah.
was. I mean, it was fun. We had a good time. Has there been any other things that you've been discovering while you're trapped away? Any other things? Any games you've been doing? At a distance or anything like that?
Um. So, in regard to Star Wars Day, actually, my brother
Perfect.
and I were talking last night. Yeah, yeah, it's a good tie-in. My brother and I were talking last night about how we could play a Star Wars card game that we've been playing since we were kids
Like
in a
the
socially
the
distant
the
manner.
collectible card game, Star
Oh
Wars
yeah,
game.
yeah, yeah. We
Oh,
both those
listen.
cards.
I know it's Star Wars Day, but I was deep into the Star Trek version of that when I was in college.
Okay.
Our whole floor played, and it became. I mean, it was like Pogs for a new generation. It was like we all played it, we all
Nice.
loved it. But anyway, so did you figure out a way to play online?
We had talked about doing something via Zoom
Yeah,
and then just kind of going back and forth about how we could lay out our cards because I mean most of us have the same cards.
yeah,
It would just be a case of setting it up appropriately.
yeah,
Or we had talked about playing in a hallway where it's, far enough
yes,
apart that we still have
yeah.
space and we can just like talk back and forth and
Yeah.
actually see each other in person as opposed to, hey, you're on a screen. Nice.
You know what? I love those old collectible card games, and what's funny about them too is like you build your deck and you set the game up. That's like 2 hours, Then you sit down to
Yep.
play, and you're done in like 30 minutes for a good game. So
Yep.
it's but I
Yep.
mean, we've got nothing but time now, so why not?
It's,
All right.
it's
Well,
very
you'll
true.
have to keep me
It's very
posted. You have to keep me posted if you make this work. I'm still,
Yeah.
as I mentioned on our last episode together, I'm still doing some mobile games. I've got quite a kingdom going in Scrabble Go. Lot of
Nice.
friends, a lot of friends, including Eric. Eric finally hopped on board, so we've been playing Scrabble across the way. And then my brother and I are still playing a game called Blackmore 2, which is just an old school side scroller beat 'em up kind of game that we can play co-op on our phones. So that's been really fun. But that's about it for me as far as things we've been trying like from a distance. We did do some movie nights and that sort of thing, but I mean, crazy times. I had nothing new to add to it. It's just a thing we're all going through.
Yep.
Yeah.
Same old,
Well,
same old.
what about books?
How about
Have
books?
you?
Are you
Yeah,
reading
yeah. Same thoughts. We had the exact same thoughts there. I
Okay.
have been sticking almost exclusively to like book comfort food. I had to
Okay.
read Howard's End for the library book club a while back, and so I read that. But since then, I've been kind of rotating Star Trek, Star Wars, and I'm currently reading A Murder She Wrote. So a
Nice.
lot of a lot of graphic novels and a lot of those. I read a Star Trek book recently called The Ladder Fire, which was pretty good. And
Okay.
it was actually set during the time of the animated series, which made it kind of interesting because I never read a book that was set during that time, and it used characters that were original to the animated series. So, that was
I
kind of
never
a
saw the animated series.
it's weirdly good because it's
Okay.
the whole original cast except for Chekhov doing the voices. They're 30-minute episodes, and they're just like you get in, you get out, and it's there's no filler or anything. I think it's actually kind of an underrated series.
Okay.
We're going to be talking Alan Dean Foster in a little bit when we get to the segment, but Alan Dean Foster actually wrote novelizations of all the animated series episodes because the company that had locked down all the rights to Star Trek did not lock down rights to novelizations. And so another company, Bantam, was able to secure those rights, and they hired Alan Dean Foster to write those. And so he did a novel that was like 3 animated episodes per novel. He did 10 or 12 of those logs. And that was one of the things that sort of propelled him into the Star Trek world, or Star Wars world, because he had experience doing these novelizations and things. So that kind of kicked off his career with Star Wars. So
cool.
Anyway, that book was called The Ladder Fire that I just finished by James Swallow. Pretty decent. I got a subscription to the Marvel Now app. Are you a comic book reader? You're not, right?
Not typically, no.
Yeah. Okay. I read a few that I sort of liked. I was in an Incredible Hulk mood, so I read a bunch of Incredible Hulk on Marvel Unlimited, and that was kind of fun. There's a whole arc where there's a Red Hulk that shows up, and it's a whole thing where he goes after the Hulk, and you don't know who the Red Hulk really is, and it's like 6 or 7 volumes of this going on. And I started this forever ago, and I finally finished that. I moved on to some She-Hulk, written by Fred Van Lente, who's an author Eric and I interviewed, I want to say last year. So some cool stuff in there. But really, that's kind of what I've been doing. You know, I've got my Star Trek, Star Wars book clubs with my friends that we've been doing just digitally. So I've been reading those. And currently, I'm reading Murder, She Wrote, A Time for Murder.
Nice.
Are you a fan of Murder, She Wrote? You watch the old show?
So I think I've seen clips and stuff from it, but I never really got into it.
Really?
Yeah, I know, right? It's bad.
Interesting.
I didn't actually watch the entirety of the show.
I see.
So I'm not...
Well,
I know it from periphery sense, not an in-depth
listen, sister, now's the time. You can watch the whole thing. Soon as you finish Ruby, just pop in Murder, She Wrote, and you can... Are you a mystery fan overall? Do you like mysteries?
So... I would say no, but I'm currently reading Murder on the Orient Express.
Oh,
so I
little
can't
Agatha Christie. Okay.
Yeah.
And so far, so good?
Yeah, it is. Like, I know the storyline, so, I mean, I already know the ending and everything. But I haven't actually read or listened to the book in total.
Okay.
So I figured I would do that, and I haven't seen the newer film adaptation that they made. Either. A couple years ago.
I think it's been a couple years.
So I was curious to see how much that correlated with the book itself and what kind of liberties they took and what it looked like.
Yeah. Okay. And have you read Agatha Christie before, or is this the first one you picked up?
I think this is the first one that I've picked up. Okay. Like I've seen, like they did like a TV series, I think, with Poirot.
Yeah.
Before.
Yep.
And I've seen some of the episodes for that, but I hadn't actually seen. Murder She Wrote. Now I'm stuck on that. I hadn't seen Murder on the Orient Express before. So.
I haven't. I'm not a big Agatha Christie fan, even though I am a mystery fan overall. I don't particularly like her style. She has a couple of plays that I like really well. When I was in college, I was in a production of The Mousetrap, which I loved. I had a great time with that show. And there was one called Write Me a Murder, which was... no, that's not it. That's not what it's called. Oh, that's going to drive me crazy. But there's one where the first act, you're seeing the aftermath of a murder that happened 20 years ago. And the second act is a flashback, and you see the actual murder happen. So it's a really unusual take on how you do that, because it's just in reversed order. So I always thought that would be a cool one to see on stage. So I've read some of the plays that I like, but novels I haven't really ever gotten into.
It is a very interesting writing style, and it shifts a lot from the book I had read just before that.
Okay.
I read The Boys in the Boat.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar. It's a nonfiction book by Daniel James Brown, and it follows competitive rowing, and so like an 8 oarsman crew in the 1920s, 1930s, and their attempts to just try and make it to the 1936 Olympics. And not being familiar with competitive rowing whatsoever, before I read it, I wasn't really sure if I like it or anything. But I decided to give it a chance, and he's really good at developing the characters and following along with what's going on in their lives and giving information about how competitive rowing works and what it looks like and a lot of the technical aspects of it, but not making it dry or boring.
Wow.
And then moving into, what it takes to actually prepare and try and work your way up to an Olympic level. Okay. And, he worked in a lot of the ongoing the ongoing world issues that people were tackling just from the Great Depression and the rise of Hitler, and how that kind of integrated in some varying capacities into their development as a team and just working their way to the Berlin Olympics.
Wow.
So it's a really good book.
Yeah.
But the writing style is very different from Agatha Christie's Murder on the Orient Express.
Yes,
so
yeah, I would think that would be quite a change.
yeah, the pacing and just the way that the story was written, it took a lot to make that transition from his writing style to her writing style. So, but I mean, both are good books and I enjoy them. It's just a difference in the writing style and what they're focusing on.
And how did you say how you came across this book?
So our library has the book itself.
Yeah, I remember.
I want to say it was written a few years ago or so. So I'd seen it on the shelf, and I'd heard some reviews about it, and some of the patrons had talked about it, saying they enjoyed it. But again, not being familiar with competitive rowing, I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But then, I was bored at one point, and on Libby, I was scrolling through, and I was like, I remember hearing about this book. Well, I should try this.
We have very different instincts, you and I, because you're like, I'm bored. I think I should read a book about competitive rowing. I don't think that my mind would have instantly jumped to competitive rowing as a cure for boredom, but, good for you. Find something that works.
Yeah. Well, I figured if I didn't like it again, it was no harm, no foul. I could just choose something new.
That's true.
It is really good.
That is true. Yeah. One of the things that I miss about not actually being in the library and being in the building, I love seeing the new books come in. I love to flip through. It's one thing to order them and, read the descriptions and all that, but to actually see them come in and flip through, it's really how I've discovered a lot of my favorite authors. Just, doing a book return or something and being like, oh, this looks good. This looks good. This looks good. Just makes my stack higher and higher and higher. So, of course, I'm doing nothing to dig away at that right now because, as I said, I'm reading, dime store kind of novels. But
right,
you got to do what you got to do, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, going back and reviewing nostalgia is a good thing.
Yep. A little comfort food. A little comfort food never hurt
there
anyone. What about? You're not much of a video game player, though, right? Or are you?
So I do play video games, not as much as I used to.
All right.
I'm not, I was working through the newest Star Wars game.
Yeah.
A little while ago.
What is that called?
Fallen Order,
yeah,
I believe it's called.
Yeah, I have that too. Yeah, I'm playing that right now.
Okay. Well, I won't spoil anything because I don't know where you are.
Okay.
But it is really enjoyable. I like the character arc that they're working on, and I like especially that they brought in characters that you're completely unfamiliar with, so that they could make up a brand new storyline, and then follow through with that and sort of develop things from there. And the graphics are just stellar.
They are, but I think it's something that one of my complaints about this game is that I agree with you on look and storyline and characters. I think those are all great, but I feel like some of the mechanics of the game feel like a game that would have come out like 10 years ago. I find a lot of frustrating places where it seems like, well, I should be able to jump there. Like, I can jump that far. I should be able to jump to that. Or I should be able to, like, walk over that. And there's just a lot of, like, things like that put me off a little bit. Have you find that at all? Or you...
I have found that on several occasions.
Yeah, right.
And
it's weird.
It's very frustrating because you're like, I know my character has this capability.
Yes, exactly.
But because of where I am and because of the way that they've developed the game, they're not making it a possibility.
Yeah.
Which is very frustrating.
It is frustrating, and it's kind of sloppy, and that's why I say a game that came out 10 years ago. I mean, now, if you play something like... that game reminds me a lot of the Uncharted series. Have you played any of that?
I haven't played any of that, but I've heard of it, yeah.
That's one of my all-time favorites. And a lot of the kinds of things that you do in there, they're not similar games, but there's a similar vibe in there. So when you're going through exploring these like deserty worlds and stuff, I think about, Uncharted 1, which is so much older than this, mechanically is so much better. It just seems like Disney has enough money to make a really top-notch Star Wars game. So I'm puzzled as to why they would leave some of these things that were so far beyond. But, it
perhaps
doesn't...
they put all their money into graphics.
Maybe. It doesn't ruin the game, but it's a criticism. So you've been playing that, and it sounds like you walked away from that a little bit. Are you playing something new now?
Well, it's on my brother's gaming system, and with
Ah,
social distancing
yes. Okay.
is, I
Yeah.
am at a indefinite pause.
Okay. Have you
Um,
played have you played any of the other older Star Wars games?
so I grew up playing Jedi Starfighter, which was
Okay. Yep.
I really enjoyed a lot because that one is also co-op.
Yeah.
So whereas I feel like with most of the other Star Wars games, the only ability that you have to actually play with another person is when you're facing off and you're just lightsaber dueling,
Yes.
which is fun to a degree, but it's really nice to be able to have a game where you can actually co-op and be able to work on a different scenario
Yeah.
together as opposed to let's just fight each other
Yeah.
again and
Yep.
again.
Yeah. I've
I
I
played
I
Starfighter, and I
mhm.
played the one with Corran Horn. I forget what it's called. Is it just like Jedi Order or
I mean, there's Jedi Outcast and there's Jedi
that?
Academy. Um, I don't know. There's so many. That Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy were ones when I was in college. Again, just like the Star Trek card game, playing Star Trek Voyager, Elite Force, and Star Wars Jedi Academy over the network. So like the whole floor was playing. That was our go-to. So we played those constantly. And the fun thing about that is when you have so many people,
Yep.
you can do a cooperative like capture the flag mode or something, and really work together, and that is way more fun. But I think there's been a lot of great Star Wars games over the years.
Oh, I agree. What was the first one you played?
I was trying to remember what it's called, and I'm afraid to use the internet to look it up because I feel like the whole thing will crash. But I played one when I was in like elementary school that was I want to say it was Dark something, like I don't think it was Dark Empire, but Dark Forces
Okay.
or something like that. And it was very
Okay.
early in like the computer graphic era. But I still remember like
Gotcha.
you'd go through like a level with sort of like the trash compactor, and you'd have like the Dianoga pop up right in front of you, and it freaked me out every time. Like we'd be playing the level and it was all dark, and they'd pop right up in the screen, and I'd be like, "Gah!" Because it was intense. But those, and then on consoles, the only one that I ever really got into was Pod Racer.
Oh, all right.
I didn't really like any of the like Shadows of the Empire. I didn't really like on console. So yeah, and then it was like Jedi Outcast, Jedi Academy. I
Yeah.
loved the Force Unleashed games. Did you play those?
Oh, those were good. So I really liked the first one. The second one I did not like as much
Okay.
because I felt like the rescuing. I think her name's Juno, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly.
Yep.
I felt like rescuing Juno was just like the opening to the game,
Yeah.
and you race through the entire process, and you're like, "Yes, I rescued her. Now we're
Yeah.
gonna move on to the big mission."
Yeah.
And they're like, "And the game is done."
Yeah.
And you're like, "Wait, wait."
Yeah. Well, I think the thing is like story wise and plot wise, they kind of mined everything in the first game. So
Yeah.
I was just happy to have more levels to play, so I was kind of okay with it. But I agree.
Right. I did like their development of force powers though. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yes, I've told this story a lot of times too, but in that first game, I played through so much of that game before I realized that you could level up. So I was like, this game is impossible. It was like it was
I
so
was gonna
hard.
say, how did
It was so hard, and then finally I was like in a pause screen, and I hit the controller or something, and one of the powers nudged up, and I was like, wait a minute. So then, of course, I went back into the level and just was like, laid waste to everything in the level because I've been playing at like base level powers for, 60% of the
fabulous.
game. Yeah,
Well,
but
on the plus side, you develop your skill well enough
that's
to
true.
make it that far.
Absolutely,
So
that's
addition
true.
of powers, it's just like, oh, I've got this.
The Xbox, so I have an Xbox One, and on the Xbox Gold, they do 3 free games a month. And for a while, they were doing a lot of Star Wars games. So I started playing Republic Commando, which I love. I think that's an
love
old
that
one, but I love that one.
I love that game.
Battlefront was one of them, which I played
Also, good.
only the multiplayer with my brother a little bit. Knights of the Old Republic was on there, and Starfighter as well, which I'd never played before. So I've been sort of rediscovering some of the really old games too, with the Republic Commando really standing out as a top. But
I think their intention had been to make a new one, or at least they left the game open so that they could. I won't spoil the ending, but I wish they would make another one.
yeah,
That would be fabulous.
yeah, oh yeah, I agree. Well, it seems like I don't know. I don't really think the response to Fallen Order has been all that positive. Like, I don't think it's been
Yeah,
overly.
I've heard varying reviews.
Yeah.
Some people like it. Some people are like, eh. It's not
It-
that like the graphics are great, but meh. I feel
It
like you could do better.
certainly didn't make a splash, I would say. Like it came out and it was something that I think should have been a huge deal, like a new Star Wars game. And it was just sort of like, there it is, Kind of like the new Avengers game that's coming out. I mean, there's some excitement over it, but I think people are more just sort of like, okay, let's see. Because historically, superhero games, I don't know, in recent years, especially the ones based on movies, have not been good, but...
Yeah, it's unfortunate too, because I mean, there's so much hype in terms of the movies.
I know. I think it's weird that there's I don't know, just a total lack of superhero games for the most part. Like all you really get is Lego, Like it's weird to me that there's not a Justice League game, not since PlayStation 2, that there's not, anything like that. It's been multiple generations of systems ago since there was any kind of steady output of superhero games, which is weird considering that they're like basically the number one thing in movies and TV, really. It's just a weird untapped market that I don't quite understand, and probably has things to do with, more to do with licensing than anything else, but
probably is a lot of licensing, but you got to wonder too. I mean, in the culture's mindset, who wouldn't want to necessarily just be their favorite superhero for a period of time?
I know, exactly. Well, listen, I bought a used PlayStation 2 just so that I could play Justice League Heroes. That's the only reason why, and that's about the only game that I've played on that. But I'll tell you what I do really want to play. Listen, I don't know why we're talking about superhero video games, but we are, and I think we just lean into it. But what I really want to play is Ultimate
Star
Alliance.
Wars.
Yeah, somewhere. There's some trajectory we can trace, but...
Okay.
I loved the X-Men Legends games back on I played them on GameCube and then Ultimate Alliance on the Wii. And finally there's an Ultimate Alliance 3, but it's Switch only, and I don't have a Switch.
So this is the problem when they trade different systems that they make games for.
Yeah.
Just like, now I have to go buy it, which I realize it's a marketing ploy.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we make them buy this system if we take this game and transition it to this system because everybody wants this game.
Yeah.
So yes, I played the first and the second Ultimate Alliance games on, I think they're both Xbox One.
Yeah.
And I did really enjoy them because you can transition between characters and you can co-op them, which is a lot of fun. And there's a lot of communication that you can have about if you do this, then I can do this, which is great. And I love that ability to kind of partner up with people more than just two, which is fun.
I agree. But I agree. I love co-op games.
It's unfortunate. Yeah, it's unfortunate that they're making it for Switch.
And you have to kind of wonder, like with Disney owning absolutely everything now, including Marvel and those Marvel characters, I kind of wonder if maybe they just... they put it on Nintendo because it's like a safe bet. Whereas if they make it on, PS4, PS5 or whatever, then they're sort of like, letting Sony, who's a major competitor of like Disney, well, not anymore really, but used to be, I wonder if it's like they don't want Sony to have those characters, they don't want to like, I don't know, you just kind of wonder with like, this is the problem with monopolies, Amanda.
I know. This is very true. It does make you wonder what the thought process is.
Yeah.
But
and
I don't have an ear on the minds of Disney, so
yes, no. I don't either. But I have been doing a lot of video games since we've been trapped away. I've been all over the place trying to keep my brain intact. So I guess
your
yeah. All right. Well, I guess did we cover everything that you've been reading? We got so far off track. You got Boys in the Boat, and you got Murder on the Orient Express. That's your list right now.
And I'm going to again, kind of diving back into what you had said about just sort of rereading old classics that you really enjoy. I'm going back to Magician's Nephew at some point. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, of course, if I read Magician's Nephew, I'll probably end up going through the whole Narnia series again. It's like the mouse cookie. But
I was just going to say that. I was literally just going to say that.
Yep. Mouse and the cookie. So, yeah, I'll probably end up rereading the whole series. So next time we talk, I'll probably be at the end of Last Battle. We'll see.
Nice. All right. I was just talking about this series. We did the Dragnet episode last week, and we did a little live stream with the cast before, and we got to talking about audio dramas, which had made a comeback in a huge way with the narrative podcasts and that sort of thing. But I was saying that one of the audio dramas that I got really into when I was, I guess, in high school would be these BBC produced versions of the Narnia series. And they were just...
Oh, yes.
Have you listened to these?
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, so the ones that I've listened to have been done by varying British authors,
Okay.
and each book is done by a different author.
Oh, I see.
Is that what you're thinking of, or was it kind of like
it's been
almost
so
like
long.
a play production?
I didn't pay that much attention, but it was like a full cast of characters and sounds and that sort of thing, going through the whole Narnia series, and they were just expertly done. So that's cool. So when was the last time you read these books?
So Libby has... Oh gosh, I don't know. I probably reread at least one of them at least once a year.
Okay.
I don't typically go through the whole series, but let's say intermittently.
Okay. All right.
Did you know, so going back to your BBC production, Libby also has the Lord of the Rings on there in like a
Really?
full... Yeah, but it's not just the books themselves, it's almost like a play production with a full cast of characters and differing special effects sounds and whatnot that are kind of added in. And music and everything. So it's really good. If you haven't done that, you should totally get onto that train.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I see. I have a hard time. This is why my podcasts and my ebooks, or my podcast and audiobook consumption has gone down now that I'm never in a car, because I have trouble just like sitting in a chair and listening to that sort of thing. So it's like if I'm like doing laundry or like cleaning or doing the dishes or something, then I will. But I can never just like sit there and listen to it. I guess I'm too antsy for that.
I will admit that yes, it does require that you do something else if you're listening to an audiobook at the same time. Because I have the same problem. I can't just sit and listen.
Eric was making fun of me for this in past weeks, but I have a lot of Star Trek ebooks, but they're only on cassette. And so we were doing yes, we were doing a Deep Space Nine book for my Star Trek Star Wars book club, and I only had it. I didn't have a physical copy of it. I tried to interlibrary loan it before we shut down, and it didn't come in time. So I only had this cassette, and it does have like sounds and everything, and it's read by Renee Ebersman-Waugh, who played Odo on that show. But the only way I had to listen to it was in R2D2 Walkman. So I popped the cassette. Fabulous. I popped the cassette in my my R2D2 Walkman, and just clipped it to my belt and listened to a Star Trek Deep Space Nine audiobook cassette on an R2D2 cassette player, and I thought, this is the dorkiest I've ever been. But
it would have been more dorky if you had somehow been able to add in Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings.
That's true. Yeah, but I was doing that while playing Quidditch and wearing the ring.
Oh,
does that?
All right, there you go.
Okay.
Yes, that counts.
Cool.
That's perfect.
Woo. All right. All right. Okay. Well, yeah. I think we covered it. I've been reading the. Did you ever watch Psych? Did you watch that show Psych?
I have not seen that show. I watched Monk, but not Psych.
Okay. I was saying to Eric that I had a Psych ebook on my Nook for like 10 plus years, and I finally read it, and it was a lot of fun. So I got the next one on my Nook as well. So that's probably where I'm going, because I do love a good mystery, and what I like about the Murder, She Wrote books and even the Psych book was that it was like, it's familiar characters, it's a setting that you enjoy, and it's a good way to sort of go through a mystery in a fun, quick way. Which is a perfect segue into our book news. I want to share a little bit about the Edgar Awards, which were just announced. So, Amanda, do you follow any book awards? Are there any that stand out to you where you're like, oh, it won that award, I want to read that?
So I'm usually into like youth fiction.
Okay.
So I'm typically following like the Newbery and the Caldecots and generally those awards, but the other ones I'm not as up on. Okay. So
yeah, I typically, I don't know. There's no award that I'm like, I'm definitely going to read that book. But I do, I mean, they're really helpful when it just comes to collection development and that sort of thing. It's kind of nice to see where things are going that way. The Edgar Award, I do think, has a pretty good spread because they really break it down and give you a lot of different things. So I'm going to go through some of the winners here. And let's see, you like youth, Amanda, so I'm going to start with youth. All right.
All right.
Edgar is primarily a mystery award, though some of the winners in the past, like Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds, won, and we couldn't quite figure that out because it's not really a mystery. But for Best Juvenile Mysteries, here are the nominees as well as the winner. The Collected Works of Gretchen Oyster by Carrie Fagan. Eventown by Corey Ann Haydu. The Whispers by Greg Howard. All the Greys on Green Street by Laura Tucker. And Me and Sam Handle the Apocalypse by Susan Vogt, which was our winner. I'm always impressed with Eric and Kate when we go through these because we almost always have the winner and a couple of nominees as well.
It's true. It's like they have this inner kind of vibe of, I'm pretty sure this is going to happen.
I know. And, I mean, because I don't order the young adult books, I don't have the same recall as them. But it's always funny where they'll be like, yes, we have that, we have that, we have that, we have that. Young Adult. Here we have for Young Adult, Killing November by Adriana Mather. Patron Saints of Nothing by Randy Ribbe, and I love that title. And I want to say that was actually shortlisted for the National Book Award as well.
I think so.
Yeah. The Deceivers by Kristen Simons, Wild and Crooked by Leah Thomas, and the winner, Catfishing on Catnet by Naomi Kritzer.
I think I'm sensing a theme here in terms of titles, like Me and Sam Handle the Apocalypse and Catfishing on Catnet are probably, if you were to look at the nominees and the winner, they're probably the most odd of the titles.
Yes, that's
the
true.
Most abnormal ones.
That's the giveaway, yep.
Right.
TV episode teleplay is always interesting, too. Have you heard of the series Line of Duty?
I have, yeah.
Okay.
I haven't seen it, but I've heard of it.
I haven't seen it either. What are the lead actors in that? And I'm not going to remember his name, but he is one of the lead actors in a show called Blood, which is on Acorn TV. Two series of that out now. Are you familiar with this?
Again, I've heard of it. Haven't seen it.
It's pretty good. And what's interesting about it is the first season is pretty straightforward, and you're following like one sister who suspects her dad of murdering her mother. And so it starts with kind of a dark premise, and you sort of get to know the family and you see what's going on. The second series, the main character from the first is not really a primary character anymore, and it kind of shifts to other members of this family, and we have a very different kind of storytelling. So I thought that was a really unique way to do that, 2 seasons with that show. But anyway, one of that main actor there is in the show Line of Duty, which has won for its episode 5 or season 5, episode 4 of Line of Duty, won for best TV episode teleplay. Boy, that's a tongue twister. We also recently watched one with David Tennant called Deadwater Fowl. Have you heard of that?
I have not heard of that one.
This one's pretty new. It's a 4-episode series, and it's about there's a fire in this town, and members of this family die, and it becomes this whole thing, like what really happened. There's a lot of kooky things about it. As much as I like David Tennant, I don't think that one really sticks the landing, but you know. The Simon Schuster Mary Higgins Clark Award, and this is the first time this award's been given without Mary Higgins Clark, who sadly passed away at the end of last year. But this is the guidelines set forth by Mary Higgins Clark are kind of unique. It has to be a female protagonist who makes her own way, who is successful and smart and relies on her own instincts. And they're not overly gory. They're not overly sexual. They just sort of fit that, like the guidelines that Mary Higgins Clark set out for themselves. So it's kind of a unique award, and it's always interesting to see what won. This time we have The Night Visitors by Carol Goodman as the winner. And I wondered if they were going to do anything different with that award this year without Mary Higgins Clark. But I see it sort of rebranded the Simon & Schuster Mary Higgins Clark Award, so maybe they're sort of doing that. And let's see. Finally, let's take a look at Best Novel. The nominees were Fake Like Me by Barbara Borland, The River by Peter Heller, which actually Eric and I featured on a Sexy New Book Club episode we did last year. And I was not a fan of this book, and it didn't win, so, you know. Smoke and Ashes by Abora Mercier, Good Girl, Bad Girl by Michael Robothon, and the winner was The Stranger Diaries by Ellie Griffiths. So, of course, there are several more winners here in the Edgar Awards, and you can find that at theedgars.com. It'll give you all the winners as well as past winners and all that. A lot of good resources on theedgars.com, and we'll share it on Twitter as well. All right, Amanda, are you ready for what we're all here for today? Our Star Wars Day special book club on Star Wars: The Approaching Storm by Mr. Alan Dean Foster.
I'm ready.
Nice. All right, so this book is kind of an interesting history. This was written in between The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, and it was meant to sort of, lead into Attack of the Clones. The planet, I guess, that they're dealing with, Ancian, is mentioned in Attack of the Clones, and you sort of start that movie with Anakin and Obi-Wan coming off a mission. So this book tells the story of that mission. Amanda, you've read this book, you said twice at least, right?
Yeah, at least twice.
So did you read it back when it first came out?
It was around that time period, I would say.
Okay.
At least, I can't remember if I read it after Attack of the Clones had come out and then it had been developed, or if sometime before. Like, I'm not... Timeline, I'm not clear on it.
Well, one of the interesting little factoids is Count Dooku is in this book, and in a very minor way, but he is in this book, and this book came out before Attack of the Clones, so this is kind of the introduction of Count Dooku, which is, an interesting little curio. When we had Alan Dean Foster on the show, we were interviewing him about his Star Trek and Star Wars work, as well as a lot of his original things like Ice Rigger and the Humanix Chronicles. But this one came up particularly because since he'd written the original novelization, the first original novel, Splinter of the Mind's Eye, this book, The Approaching Storm, as well as the novelization of The Force Awakens, he has kind of a unique place in the Star Wars history, and that he has been, played a role in every one of the major eras. And I can't think of another author who's done that. So it's kind of a unique situation for him. But we were asking him about, that's episode 225, if I didn't say that. Episode 225, interview with Alan Dean Foster. Check that out. But he was saying that with the novelization and Splinter of the Mind's Eye, that it was kind of like, here's the script, go nuts, and there wasn't a ton of oversight. There wasn't really like, here's all the things you can do, here's all the things you can't do. With Splinter of the Mind's Eye, it was written to be something that they could make a very low-budget movie out of. So have you read Splinter of the Mind's Eye, Amanda?
I did a really long time ago, and I remember, at that point when I had read it, it was well into the Star Wars saga, and I knew a lot of the storyline and everything, so going back and reading it after I knew so much of the story, it seemed almost like it didn't fit.
Oh,
but
it doesn't.
I realized,
it doesn't. That's what's fun about it.
It was the case of that it was one of the earlier, or I guess one of the earliest in this case.
It's the very first, after the A New Hope. This is the first thing that happens. Yeah. First Star Wars sequel.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very clear that it was just, the world is wide open, make it what you will.
Yeah.
And, he takes that and he goes with it.
He does.
And he did a good job, but it took a lot of, it went in a very different trajectory as time went on. So
he said on that one, the only directives he got were, we don't have Harrison Ford, we don't have any money, so write a story that will cost nothing and features very few characters. So you really only get Luke and Leia. And there's clearly an attraction between them.
Right.
Which is problematic, as we know. And and it's all on sort of a murky backwater planet. So, you need a fog machine, Mark Hamill, and Carrie Fisher, and you can make this movie. So that's kind of funny to read that. And there's actually a pretty good graphic novel adaptation of it that Marvel put out, which is on Marvel Unlimited, if anybody out there wants to check that out. But that's pretty cool. But he was very free on those. He said that The Approaching Storm was the least fun to work on because there was so much oversight and going and sitting with committees of people and discussing all the things you can and can't do, going out to Skywalker Ranch, going back and forth on this. And so he said
would be really hard as an author.
He said this one was,
your artistic ability is just kind of stunted in so many ways.
Yeah, because you're just so limited. And I think that, he had a good mindset to do that because he'd done so much work on novelizations and adapting existing media and that sort of thing, that he was kind of an old pro at it, was able to navigate it. But he said it was by far the least enjoyable of the ones that he had to work on. And he said that, with Force Awakens, he did have to really strictly adhere to the script and everything. So it's just kind of interesting to get that perspective. He also said that he'd wanted to tell a story about a female Jedi, which he did get a chance to do. And that was something that he was really proud of. But Amanda, I mean, you're an old pro at this book now, so do you want to just take us through the plot, just like walk us through what happens in this book, and then we'll discuss a little bit. And fair warning, we're book clubbing this book, and so we are going to spoil it. All right, so just know that if you want to read this book and you don't want to hear how it ends, this is probably a good hopping off point for you. Thanks for joining us thus far. We bid you adieu. All right, so spoilers will begin. Amanda, can you just take us through the plot?
Yeah. So essentially, Obi-Wan and Anakin, as well as our female protagonists, Luminara and Barriss, are dispatched to this little backwater planet in the Outer Rim known as Ancian to try and help keep them in the Republic, and so that they don't secede. But of course, our enemy, the Separatists, they want Ancian to secede, not because it's this great planet or they have like some inner military knowledge about it, but if that one falls, it'll be the domino effect for the other outer lying planets.
It's a bit of a linchpin. It's sort of like that because of its interconnectivity with the people around it. It's like whatever way that one falls, it's going to be a domino effect. So yeah, just like you're saying, this is a crucial planet where both sides need a foothold. Yep.
So if the Separatists get it, it'll give them the foothold, as you said,
exactly, so
that they can springboard into gathering other planets to their dark their dark ideals. So all four of these Jedi get dispatched to this particular world, and they're trying to unite both the city dwellers and the nomads of the planet, because they have a lot of friction in between them.
Yeah.
And naturally, the Separatists along the way are trying to thwart them, either by kidnapping them and holding them for ransom, or killing them, or just trying to continue to divide the people in the city from the nomads and just stirring up unrest as time goes. So it's very interesting in that it's very much a kind of a journey sort of storyline, as opposed to like your standard Star Wars, where there's a lot of space battles and a ton of lightsaber battles. Yeah. There's more a focus in some ways on character development and just them trying to get to where they are. And naturally, with Anakin being such a big focal point of the Star Wars universe, it's interesting seeing the varying character developments that occur with him as well. And even just before like Attack of the Clones, because he doesn't have that furthering love interest with Padme, right. And you're not seeing his question back and forth of, am I okay with the Jedi? Am I not okay with the Jedi? And the start of the Clone Wars and all that entails.
I thought it was kind of interesting, and I wanted more of this, but I thought it was kind of interesting to see him with another Padawan, because we don't really, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't really remember much with Anakin dealing with people who are sort of on his level as far as like the hierarchy of the Jedi. I can't think of really any other characters that he's like that with. Can you?
So there is a series, it's called Jedi Quest.
Okay.
Which is where he's, I don't know, like a very early teenager-ish, and he's training at the Jedi Temple and going on missions at times with Obi-Wan and interacting with other Padawans. So there is some interaction in that regard, but it's a series for like a younger generation.
Okay.
It's not like adult books or anything. Uh-huh. But you do get an idea of just some of the things that he's dealing with and the frustrations that he has of being an older Padawan and knowing his roots and knowing his mom and some of the difficulties that he has in making that detachment from his mom and integrating into the Jedi Academy, or not Academy, the Jedi Order.
Yeah.
And just trying to make friends, but finding it difficult and feeling the weight of being the chosen one and struggling with his own force powers and under always that underlying simmering kind of frustration and anger that he's always dealing with.
I'll tell you one of my frustrations with this book, and I'm like, I guess I should just say it at the top. I did not particularly enjoy this read of this book.
Okay.
And I think the reason for that is I like Luminari and I like Barriss, and I think I would have preferred a story that just focused on them, because it sort of felt like reading the book and just talking to Alan Dean Foster, it seemed like that was really what he was more interested in as well. And so it's like, I think if they would have just leaned into that and maybe not even had Obi-Wan and Anakin, like I might have found the uniqueness of that a little bit more intriguing. But ultimately, I felt like this book was a lot of people sitting in rooms talking about stuff. You know?
Yes.
Would you agree?
I agree. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
And so
yeah. I mean,
I think
they
it depends.
spent time going back and forth.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think it depends on how invested you are into like the geopolitical landscape of the two different factions here going at it, trying to secure this planet. If that political element is something from this era that you really get into, then I think there's a lot here to dive into. But I felt like without a true central character and without really a identifiable villain. I mean, sure, you have the Hutts and you have people pulling strings and things, but I don't really feel like this had a true nemesis. You know, it was more about diplomacy, really, than any sort of like good versus bad. I just felt like those things, a lack of those things, I guess, took away urgency that I think you might have felt otherwise. So I was a little like, okay, let's can we stop talking about this and maybe like get into it? But that was a frustration I had throughout the book. But this is your second reading, so I mean, you have an alternate take.
So I was surprised at how quickly I often forget the political aspects of this book.
Yeah.
Going through it, you're right. You go back and forth, and you're like, all right, we're on the plains, and we're riding out on Inseon, and we're talking about various things, and then we switch back to the Separatists, and they're being very political, and they're talking about how to handle things, and they're dealing with the inner workings of their own political issues, and just wiping individuals who are in the way of their own personal gain, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
So there is a ton of politics in this particular book, and I did find that to be rather bogging down the storyline, and it was somewhat frustrating. And it was kind of like slogging through in a lot of different ways. I mean, I enjoyed it in some ways because I enjoyed the character arc when they were on those aspects of things, but it was a little difficult to just slog through the mire of the political aspects of the Star Wars universe. I was I had forgotten.
It sort of felt like to me, like, I don't know, like this whole novel could have been condensed into a B plot of a more like adventure filled story. You know, if you have some other thing going on where there's like, you know, true action and intrigue, and then you're sort of bouncing back and forth between these are boots on the ground characters going in there and doing stuff, and this is sort of the behind the scenes discussions happening. I could see that kind of give and take working really well, but to me,
I've seen that.
I just
Star Wars books.
Yeah. Oh yeah. To
transition.
And I
but this was very politically heavy.
Yes, it was, and I have to kind of wonder how much of that was Alan Dean Foster's hands being tied by what he was allowed to do and say, and have the characters do and say in this book, because I mean, you got to remember, at this point, the only Anakin Skywalker we've seen from this era is like a little baby Jake Lloyd, you know.
Yes.
You know, so we haven't seen Anakin like as a Padawan, and it's possible that they wanted to sort of save that reveal and what that was like for the actual movie. So, I don't know, but it just feels like knowing how many restrictions were placed on this probably had a greater impact on the kind of story that was able to tell, and it seems like the book suffered because of that.
I wonder if they were trying to use it as a means of building his underlying frustration with like the Senate and everything.
Yeah.
Because there was so much politics, and Barriss and he get into it oftentimes about how he's frustrated with the Senate and what they're doing, or especially what they're not doing and handling things, and he's very much of a we clearly need to fix this, so let's be direct about it and go and do it.
Yeah.
Whereas, not that Barriss is always this way, but she tends to be a bit more diplomatic in saying, well, you know, we need to take our time and actually talk to people. We can't just hit them over the head.
Barriss is in a duology called Battle Surgeons. It's like the MedStar duology. Have you read that?
I like that series a lot.
These
It's
are
probably one of my favorites.
really okay. I was going to say the same thing. Those are, I think, really. I mean, I have a great affection for the Zahn, like the Thrawn trilogy and all that. But I really think those two books were the books that I enjoyed reading the most. I just liked seeing Barriss use her Jedi healing power. I liked being on the front lines of the battle and seeing everything from a totally different viewpoint. And the funny thing about those two books is they're just a complete polar opposite from this book here, The Approaching Storm.
Yeah.
And it's like you're kind of looking at the same thing, but you're going from a completely different direction. I will say we do have these Battle Surgeons books in the collection at the David A. Howe Public Library. So when the doors open up again, please come back and check them out. Amanda and I both recommend them.
Yes.
What do you think, Amanda, taking this as it was meant to be, as sort of a precursor to Attack of the Clones, set up for Attack of the Clones, do you think that there's much to glean character-wise out of what transpires in this book that would have helped a viewer going into Attack of the Clones? Like, is there stuff that you learn here that increases your understanding of what you're going to see in Attack of the Clones?
Not well. So from Anakin's perspective, I would say not a great deal.
I don't think so.
Just
either.
because I feel like a lot of that information is made clear in Attack of the Clones.
Yes.
I feel like if you gain any information about characters, it's probably more about Obi-Wan, because you see more of his struggle of trying to be a good master to his apprentice and just try and help build him and develop him as a fledgling Jedi, so to speak. So you see some of his frustration, but you also kind of see that mirrored in Luminara's observations of Obi-Wan and Anakin's interaction, because she'll make comments like just in her head of being like, well, that's his Padawan, and I would not do nearly as well, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So, and of course, like with Luminara and Barriss going into Attack of the Clones, the only time that you really interact with Barriss again is the.
Whoop! I lost you there. All right. Hold on, everyone. We'll get it back together. That's one of the fun things that we get to deal with when we're stuck at home trying to make this sort of thing work. To answer my own question while we wait for Amanda to come back, I don't really feel like there is much that you do get from here. Amanda, we got you back? Ooh, you there?
Yeah, I'm back.
Oh, cool. Okay. You were saying about seeing it mirrored in the Luminary Barriss relationship. That's sort of where we cut out.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, mostly just that Luminara will make observations like in her own head about Obi-Wan and Anakin's interactions and some of the struggles that she sees in their interpersonal relationship, and just trying to develop things as a master Padawan, and how she kind of thinks, I couldn't do that. So it's interesting seeing it from sort of a removed perspective. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, I think that most of the information that you need, like going into Attack of the Clones, you wouldn't necessarily glean anything from this book in particular.
Yeah. I guess that I would be hard pressed to recommend this one to anyone. Because I don't think it's a particularly engaging read, and I don't think it says much new, and that can be a challenge, I think, when writing something that's dealing with established characters who are on a certain trajectory, and you can't change that trajectory. You're sort of, you're penned in with what you can do in the best of situations, and it sounds like writing this one wasn't the best of situations, but where others seem to find character moments and make it give you a greater understanding, I just don't think that this one really succeeds in that way.
Yeah, I think it was more just trying to build up the political aspect of things and show where there were shifts and where there was that unrest underneath the way that the government, or the Senate in this regard, was handling all the different aspects of things, and just sort of that fracturing.
Yeah.
I think that was it seemed like that was one of the main points of this book.
Yeah, I think main problems. Is that what you said?
Yeah. Well, no, main premise. It was like
the main premise. Yes. Okay. Yes. Sorry. I agree. Trying to trying to get a handle on that angle and seeing all the different sides going in. That's the thing with the prequel era. Like, the politics stuff is just at the forefront. There's just so much about it that you have to grapple, and that's a huge part of understanding and enjoying those movies, if that's something that you're able to do. And so I understand why at this point, like, I think like giving a more practical understanding of like what exactly this whole tug of war between the two sides is. I could see why they thought like, well, maybe flesh that out in a novel and give people a sense of the landscape going into the movie. But I would rate this on the low end overall as far as fiction for this era.
Yeah.
Do you have what are some of your favorite books set in the Clone Wars era? I know we talked about Battle Surgeons and the MedStar duology.
So I also liked Cestus Deception a lot. That was good.
I read that. Yeah.
That one was good.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to remember what it was called. Oh, have you read Dark Rendezvous?
Is that the Yoda book?
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
No, I haven't, but that is one that's on my list.
Okay, that one is really good. So that one's an interesting perspective in that it kind of follows Padawans that you're completely unfamiliar with, and Jedi Knights that you're also unfamiliar with, and the only real character that you are familiar with is Yoda, because he interacts well, and Count Dooku, but he's the bad guy, of course. So it follows their storyline, and interestingly, and I won't say who, but one of the characters ends up transitioning. Like, you see her again from the Dark Rendezvous book, and she ends up being in I'm trying to remember, the Order 66 books, the Clone ones.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I can't remember Karen Travis. That's the one.
Yeah. Okay, yep.
So yeah, her character ends up in there, and then just connecting with the clones and stuff. So it's interesting seeing her growth from the Dark Rendezvous book itself, which is a standalone, and then it's transitioning to the Karen Travis Clone Wars books.
Okay.
But that one's a favorite.
I really like the first of the Republic Commando ones. I think it's called Hard Contact. That's just all about the clone troopers. I love that one. That's also really high on my list.
That was good. Yeah, I liked that series a lot, but it was frustrating a bit because I know she had intended to carry it out a bit further and then sort of end it. But then when Disney took over and then started making changes to the Mandalorians and everything, I think it messed with her storyline a bit.
Sure, yeah.
Having to change it and then end it more abruptly than she had intended, which was frustrating.
That is frustrating. One of the more recent prequel era set novels that I really enjoyed was Master and Apprentice by Claudia Gray. Did you read that one?
Oh yeah, I did read that one.
I think that one's and the audiobook is really great. I mean, it's the guy who does the audiobook does a perfect Qui-Gon Jinn, and even a really good like Obi-Wan and Dooku as well. So it's really, I mean, it feels like an audio drama. It feels like a full cast audio drama, even though it's just a traditional audiobook with sounds. But that's really high on my list. I think that's a really exceptional one from that era. Honestly, I usually enjoy the prequel era books more than I enjoy the prequel era movies themselves, because I do think there's a lot of good stuff in there, and some of these really skilled writers are able to go in and pull that out and really put that at the forefront. So I enjoy that. I never really got into the Clone Wars TV series, though I really like Rebels, Star Wars Rebels.
Both I really enjoyed, actually. Yeah. Did you finish Rebels?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to. Don't worry. Don't spoil it. I'm going to.
All right. I won't spoil. I can't talk to you about it.
Okay.
Clearly.
All right. Yes, that's true. That is true.
And for all the viewers or listeners, I should say, they also won't get spoilers. So you're in luck.
Yep.
He hasn't seen the whole thing.
You're safe.
Did
you
watch any of the Clone Wars series?
I have watched most of the first season, and I don't know. The drop into a different spot in the timeline in each episode format of storytelling just never really clicked with me.
Okay. I had enjoyed the Clone Wars series a lot, and I know that they've actually brought it back for another season.
Yeah.
They're going through it at the moment, I believe.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, so I have no idea how it goes, but I've heard it's supposed to be like a transition almost in some ways to Rebels.
Yeah. Rebels and I was just talking about this with my brother Steven, who's been on the show in the past, but he was a big fan of Clone Wars and the prequels in general. He would say his top would probably be the Revenge of the Sith novelization, which is actually a very unique book in the Star Wars canon. The storytelling it really stands out from the others, so that's definitely worth a read. But he was saying that he's really enjoying this new season of Clone Wars, and that there was a little bit of an arc that was focusing on a side plot, and he wanted to get back to the meat. But overall, he had nothing but positive remarks for the season. So,
yeah, I was really big on Star Wars, and she said the same thing.
It's one of those things that, like, sooner or later, like, I'll get around to and just sit down, buckle down, and finish it all. But so far, we just haven't. But I hear almost exclusively good things about it. So,
Yeah, same. So I'm very hopeful.
Yeah. All right. Well, anything else you want to add about our book club book today, The Approaching Storm?
I wish that they had done more, like you had said earlier. I wish they had done more and made it more about Luminara and Barriss, just
Agreed.
because there was so much that was unknown about them.
Yeah.
And they could have taken it to just sort of develop their characters.
Yeah.
And it would have been really interesting to hear their backstory and how they got together and other missions they'd been on, etc.
Yeah.
But that's not the way it went, so
Yep.
we're stuck with this.
Well, we do have this book in our collection, so once again, when you can come to the library, you can come in and check this out. If you've read this book, we would love to hear your comments, so you can put them right in the library's Facebook page when we post the episode. It's David A. Howe Public Library on Facebook. On Twitter, it's All the Book Show, or soundcloud.com/allthebooks is where the audio feed is going to be. So please share your comments with us, and we'll read them along and do the book club that way. But I think for this episode, that's going to do it. Amanda, thank you very much for filling in for a travel-weary Eric. You still there? Did I lose you?
No, I'm still here.
Oh, good. Okay. There was like a long gap. Anyway, Amanda, always nice to talk to you. Thanks for filling in on this episode. Anything else you want to add? And if you had to recommend one Star Wars thing to people, what would it be?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Like book?
Yeah, one book.
All right. Well, my favorite book is Vision of the Future. It's by Timothy Zahn.
Oh, yeah.
It's part of a duology.
The duology. Yeah. Interesting.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, well, I enjoyed that book, too. I don't know if I would have jumped right to that, but okay. Yeah, I think the duology is pretty strong. All 5 of those books are pretty good. All right.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. To answer my own question, I don't really know. I love those MedStar books so much that I might say that's a fun place to drop into, because all you need to know is contained in those books. I don't think it requires a lot of outside knowledge about what's going on, so I think those are really cool. But anyway, the Alan Dean Foster interview, which we got a lot of interesting stuff from him, was back at episode 225, so you can check that at soundcloud.com/allthebooks. Next week, we're going to be talking to actor John Davey, who was best known for playing Captain Marvel in the 1970s live-action Shazam series. But we talk about his film work. We talk about his time working with Lucille Ball on The Lucy Show, with James Garner on The Rockford Files. A lot of interesting stuff about, old school TV and film. A really interesting interview, so I hope you'll join us for that next week. But other than that, Eric sends his love to our listeners. He'll be back with us next week. Amanda, thanks for joining me, and we'll see everybody next time.
Thank you.